This week's video is all about improving your motivation levels with 3 tools that are going to make your smartphone less addictive. The highlight of this working week is I have made amazing progress on the book that I'm editing by using some of the strategies in this workshop to improve my motivation. The study I want to talk about this week is reference 414 in my sources. The lead author was Wickford. This was published last year in Computers and Human Behavior Reports. So why is this an interesting study? It will probably come as no surprise whatsoever that our phones are extremely addictive. And it's actually been found that the more time we spend engaging with smartphones, the more we perceive that relationship with our phone to be a burden. And unfortunately, smartphones have a real draining effect on our motivation levels. So something that I see all the time in my coaching practice is people who have big goals that they want to achieve in life, but rather than making progress with those goals, they are up at 1 in the morning scrolling through TikTok videos of cats. So how can that be? How can we end up being massively distracted by our phones? Well, I do deliver a whole workshop and training on the ways that dopamine works and why we get distracted and why we procrastinate. But let me give you some really simple tips so we can avoid this phone being so destructive and also learn a little bit more about that study. So why is our phone such a problem? There's 2 main problems with our phone from a motivation perspective. They are both to do with the chemical messenger in our brain called dopamine. Dopamine is motivation and focus and attention. It's also pleasure. So dopamine is the reason why you look forward to doing the things that you enjoy, but you put off doing the things that you don't enjoy. Dopamine has another big role because the primary function of dopamine is to do with movement. That's why when people have problems with the dopamine circuits in their brains, that can present as problems like Parkinson's disease, where we struggle with those finer movements. This is a bit of a problem because it means the part of your brain that is associated with motivation also has a say in your movement. Now, it's thought that dopamine evolved to encourage mammals to forage for fruit. This means that dopamine is all about finding rewards. And if your brain thinks you're about to do something that's unrewarding, it has a process to protect you by blocking your movement, and that's called procrastination. Because remember, the dopamine centers in your brain are not only associated with motivation, they're also associated with movement. Over the millennia, this has been really useful to animals because let's say, for example, our ancestors walk miles and miles looking for food, but when they get to the bush they want to forage in, there's no food there. Their brain learns that that's unrewarding, and so they stop going there in the future. That is procrastination. But when they go somewhere and there is a reward, they get a dose of dopamine. Now they want to go back. So your brain is always tracking, where do I get my dopamine from? And as a result, when you get dopamine from something, you're motivated to do it again. You can become so highly motivated, you become addicted to that thing. But if you don't normally get your dopamine from that source, then your brain will procrastinate to stop you from wasting time. It wants to protect you from wasting your energy by walking to a bush that contains no fruit, by sharpening spears to go out hunting in an area that contains no food. So dopamine has evolved to protect us. Now, why is that a problem? That's a massive problem because your smartphone was deliberately designed to raise your dopamine levels, which means that when you engage with it, you're extremely motivated and it becomes addictive. Unfortunately, that means when you put your smartphone away, your dopamine levels drop. Now you lack motivation, you feel bad, and you will probably crave that dopamine again, which is why you crave your smartphone. There are 2 ways that your smartphone is designed to be deliberately addictive by spiking your dopamine. Number 1 is, remember that dopamine probably evolved to encourage mammals to forage for fruit and for food. So dopamine loves bright contrasting colors, just like fruit. This means that our phone manufacturers deliberately include lots of very, very bright contrasting colors in all our displays. And remember, because dopamine evolved to help mammals search for fruit, dopamine loves round red circles. which you see all over your phone screen in the form of notifications. Your phone screen is deliberately designed to look like fruit, and it's highly, highly addictive. There's also a second way that your phone is very addictive, which we'll look at in a second. But first, I want to look at how do we tackle this issue of bright, contrasting colors and round red notifications that makes us so addicted and drains our motivation levels. Well, the study I mentioned right back at the beginning by Wickford, which was published last year, found that after using your phone in black and white, your usage time is down, your phone addiction is down, and you perceive less suffering in your relationship with your phone after just 24 hours. So why is that? By taking the color away from your phone, it's no longer spiking your dopamine, which means you're no longer unmotivated when you're not looking at your phone. So in this video, we're going to look at how do you set your phone up in black and white mode. If you have an Apple iPhone, that mode is called grayscale mode. I'm about to talk you through how to put your iPhone in grayscale mode. First thing you need to do is open up the settings tab in your phone. Then you click on accessibility. Inside the accessibility menu, click on display and text size. Now scroll all the way to the bottom of that view, click into color filters and turn it on. The default filter is grayscale. You might notice straight away your phone looks really boring. Yeah, not only do people in studies find that their phone instantly looks boring, but lots of the men that I've worked with in my coaching practice who've put their phone into grayscale mode find it is instantly boring because you're used to getting that dopamine fix, which you're not going to get anymore, or at least you're not going to get as much from your phone. Use your phone in that mode, but I'm going to give you some tips to make it easier because some apps don't work particularly well in black and white. Take, for example, Google Maps. Google Maps is a blue line on a grey background. So now your phone's in black and white. It's a grey line on a grey background, and you'll spend the rest of your life looking for your next meeting. So on your iPhone, open up settings again. This time, open display and brightness, and now enable dark mode. Well, in dark mode, what you'll find is those maps that used to be a blue line on a grey background, they're now a white line on a black background, and now you can use them while your phone's in grayscale mode. If this is the first time you've used grayscale mode and you're a bit scared that it might affect your phone in ways that you're not expecting, I would say leave the tab open in the background so you can turn off grayscale mode if you need to in an emergency. But the reality is you'll be absolutely fine. It's just taking the color away from someone using a smartphone is a bit like taking a bottle of whiskey away from someone who's used to drinking alcohol every night. It creates an emotional reaction because it's a highly addictive substance. If you're an Android user, the mode instead is called bedtime mode. Now, lots of people use bedtime mode for when they're going to bed, but I would say don't just use it when you're going to bed, use it all of the time. So how do we set that up? Different versions of Android look different, but I'm going to show you one way to do it, and you'll find whichever version you're on, it's pretty similar when it comes to Android. So the easiest way is open up your shortcuts on an Android phone, and then you have the option to add more shortcuts. What I would do is I would add bedtime mode as a shortcut, and I would move it next to do not disturb. You'll see why in a second. Now I can toggle bedtime mode on and off. I don't have to set a timer. I can just toggle bedtime mode on. What you'll see straight away once you toggle it on is do not disturb turns on. But if you're planning to use your phone during the day, you probably don't want it in do not disturb mode. So now you can toggle do not disturb off, and you'll also see you can toggle dark mode on at the same time. So in just about 1 minute, you've changed your phone. So yes, it's in black and white. It's much less addictive. You're going to find it much more easier to get motivated about things in life that aren't on your phone, but you still won't miss any calls. You can use your phone completely normally. In fact, if you take a photo or if you take a screen print and then send it to someone on WhatsApp, it won't be in black and white. No one will think, why has Ryan gone back to the 1950s? No, it will be in full color. It's only a filter that's on your screen to stop you from feeling so addicted to your phone. So that's one of 3 strategies you can use to be much less addicted to your phone, which is use your phone in black and white mode. Because as I say, the Wickford study from last year found that even just 24 hours makes a massive difference. A strategy that's really working in my coaching practice, one of them is use grayscale or bedtime mode. That works really, really well. Lots of my clients have found they're amazed at how much more motivated they are once their phone is now in black and white. So that's one strategy. But let's combine it with another one. I said earlier there's two reasons why your phone screen is addictive. One is the bright contrasting colors, but the other is, remember that dopamine evolved to make our ancestors hunt and forage and maybe find new partners. For that reason, dopamine loves when you do something predictable, like walk a route to see whether there's berries in that bush or sharpen spears to go out hunting, but you get an unpredictable result. Dopamine loves that. That's often called variable reward or intermittent rewards, and variable rewards are extremely addictive. 10,000 years ago, the only variable rewards were things like sharpen your spear, go out to hunt. You may or may not come back with food. You do something predictable, sharpening the spear, you get something unpredictable. You may or may not catch some food. Nowadays, we have loads of ways of getting variable rewards. So here's an example. You do something predictable, like you roll a dice and a random number pops up, unpredictable result. So gambling is extremely addictive for this very reason. In fact, slot machines are designed around this. You pull the one-arm bandit arm, predictable action, and what happens in front of you, whether you get cherries or berries or whatever it is, oh, look, it looks like fruit, unpredictable result. So whenever we do something that's predictable, but we get something unpredictable, that's extremely addictive. Smartphone app designers know this. And so what they've done over the years is whenever they can, they will use news feeds. So rather than clicking into YouTube and being shown, Ryan, here are all the different categories, all in alphabetical order of the different videos you can watch. No. It's random. So every time I do something predictable, like open YouTube, I get an unpredictable result. And this is integrated all over the place. Social media gives you a news feed. So as you scroll down, you do something predictable, you scroll down with your finger, and the result is unpredictable. Random things are popping up, people you haven't heard from in years. Putting your phone in black and white is great, but it won't get rid of the variable rewards that are in your apps. And so another trick that you can use is, there are different ones for this. I personally use an app called Freedom. It has a free version. I use the paid version. I'm not an affiliate of Freedom. I'm not going to get anything from you downloading Freedom, but it's an app blocker. So I can decide all hours of the day, except for lunchtime, block social media. I could block gambling websites. I could block gaming websites. I could block porn websites. I could block YouTube. I could block social media. You can go on and choose which websites and which apps do you want to block, and you can create a schedule for when are they blocked. Doing these two things, putting your phone in black and white and then using an app to block the other apps that you find distracting, is so good for your motivation, because now you can't get dopamine through those apps anymore. And what that means is the only way you can get dopamine is by doing the things you want to do. So for example, last week, by locking down my phone in black and white and blocking the apps that I find distracting, especially news apps, I did more work on my book last week than I have done in the past month. I was reminded of these strategies because I delivered my Master Your Mind workshop on dopamine to my coaching program, and I was like, oh yeah, I've stopped using some of those strategies, so I just rolled them out again. So there's two brilliant strategies that work really, really well for improving your motivation. There's a third one, which most people will never do, which is use a dumb phone rather than a smartphone. No one was addicted to their phones when these things were out. They just aren't as colorful and they just aren't as addictive as the smartphones of today. One thing I think everyone should know is the less time you spend looking at a smartphone and the other bright screens in your life, the more happier and motivated you'll be. I work with people all the time who've been putting off life goals for years, and as they reduce screen time, they start achieving the things that they have not been able to in years, because they are now getting their dopamine from things that they want to do, which means that they are now motivated by their goals, not by their TikTok newsfeed. Knowing these things doesn't help. Doing them does. So put your phone in grayscale mode or in bedtime mode at the end of this video and try it for a couple of days.